I don't know if many people have that with LI, but for me, not coming from a political background, not really knowing anything about it, I realized like this, in one kind of serious moment, like this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And this is a serious deal for me.
All right. Well, David Blair, welcome to LI Studios.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
You've been a longtime friend of LI, and I wanted to capture kind of the who is David Blair story. So take us from the beginning. Where did you grow up, and what was life like as a kid?
Well, I grew up in Southern Illinois, and I put emphasis on the Southern. It's not Chicago. It's not the suburbs. We're about as far from Chicago as you can get in Southern Illinois, right by the river. And, honestly, I count myself pretty lucky having grown up there, because not only do you have kind of the Midwestern values and that small community that you get to know, but, you also kind of have this inherent kind of conservative undertone of everything. So it's not, growing up in, an area of the country that still values, family, limited government, and people kind of leaving you alone.
Really in Illinois.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's the thing, people don't understand that. They think like Chicago and everything, but you go to Southern Illinois and I could walk out of my back porch and start shooting a gun into the air and everybody just thinks I'm trying to hit a bird. But it's such a different place.
And through that upbringing, what kind of sparked your interest in teaching?
So my dad, actually, my dad was a foundation director for a local community college. He also was an English professor there at that community college for years and years. And I honestly, just by growing up with my dad, kind of got that, aspect of my personality was teaching, explaining. I really liked, really had a passion for history, actually, and really loved kind of figuring out the truth and the who, what, when, where, and how behind something, and then explaining that to people. And it really just became a passion of mine of taking something that is like a complex concept, mastering it, and then sharing that information with people. And that really comes from my dad. But yeah, just becoming a teacher in general, was a big thing.
And then how did you first hear about LI? We don't have a whole lot of history teachers then join the political movement. So what's your journey there?
Yeah, so throughout college, I was, if anything, apolitical. I had a few issues here and there that I really cared about, the Second Amendment and things of that nature. But I found out about LI, actually. A friend of mine was involved in politics. His name's Joe DeBose. He'll shoot me if I didn't say his name. But he was involved in politics, actually, with Phil Schlafly's Eagle Forum years and years ago. And he shared a post on Facebook from Leadership Institute regional field coordinator recruiting for the field representative program. And at the time, I graduated college. I was a substitute teacher, becoming a teacher in Illinois. It's a very political job. You have to know the right people. And, I was kind of working my way through that process. But I was a sub. And as a sub, you don't make a whole lot of money. And when the summer comes, you're just out of work. There's no paycheck coming in. So the summer hit, I was out of work, got down to my last can of beans, literally.
Whoa.
And I'm applying for every job I can. And I asked my friend, I was like, what are the odds of me getting this field representative job at Leadership Institute? He said, 1,000,000 to 1. It's not going to happen. And
1,000,000 to 1.
But I know he had a lot of confidence in me, right? But turns out I did. And it's the beautiful thing about LI, actually, is that they find some guy who's not really politically active, who, is generally conservative, doesn't really know a lot about politics, but has kind of that good foundation. They're able to identify that and then mold that person into someone who is going to be usable for the conservative movement. So that's just finding that on Facebook and applying for the job. I think I had the worst resume of all time.
What was on your resume?
So here's something you don't do at home, kids. I went on Monster.com, back whenever Monster.com was a big thing, and I made like the resume there and downloaded it as a PDF.
Uh-huh.
I had a 12-page resume.
12 pages.
Had like my interests and a fun blurb about me and my favorite quotes,
Oh my
and
gosh.
it was horrendous. And I turned that in, and they called me anyway. But yeah, that was kind of the process of getting into LI. And I literally got a call like a week after I submitted the resume from the national field director here for an interview. They liked my interview, and right away they bought me a plane ticket, flew me out to Arlington, and went into the youth leadership school. That was my introduction to LI, was the school I wound up running.
So from, I guess, country boy, Midwestern boy, to history teacher, to coming to the big city, what was what was the arrival in Arlington and those 2 weeks of field rep training like?
You know, that is interesting, because I don't know if I've told this story too much, but it was an absolute, like, I guess, an epiphany moment. And, you know, in life, occasionally you'll go along and then you hit certain moments where you're like, oh, this is a really big deal. And if I do this right, it's going to change my life. And I don't know if many people have that with LI, but for me, not coming from a political background, not really knowing anything about it, I realized, like, this, in one kind of serious moment, like, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And this is a serious deal for me. So first of all, getting on a plane I'd only flown, I think, maybe twice in my life at that point. And the fact that an organization was willing to invest in me to fly me out to this world-class training in a facility that they owned, and obviously a world-class training facility, it was not only impressive, but it also showed me, like, hey, these guys are serious. This isn't trying to get me to sell insurance or Cutco knives or Tupperware. Like, this is a real deal. And so got off the plane at Reagan, get onto the metro, never been on a metro, come to LI. And I remember looking around, getting out in Clarendon, looking around and being like, wow, this is the big city. This is huge. There's so much stuff here. And then once I got into the training and saw the people around me, saw the teachers and the lecturers there, and seeing Leadership Institute's building, it made me realize, like, this is a real thing that I've stumbled onto here, like I found a hidden treasure, and I've got to run with this, and I've got to make it my career. So
what was it about those 2 weeks, maybe a speaker, faculty member, that kind of made you feel like this was a hidden treasure?
I mean, I'd say the whole experience in a large part, but it really, more than anything else, it was the community. So coming to LI, you realize there are, in my training, I think there were like 80 other people that these are all young conservatives who are involved in the public policy process, who are passionate about their principles, and are on a trajectory to not only take over conservative politics, but eventually they are going to be the ones leading the country. And these people are not flashes in the pan. They are not going to go away. These are the backbone of what will be the conservative movement and the rest of, of our future. And so kind of getting involved in that club.
You had a sense that this was like going to be the future.
Oh yeah, and I still do. Every time I teach a class, every time I meet YLS graduates, I'm thinking, well, he'll be a senator one day. That they don't know it yet, but they're going to run some organization. They're big deals, and you stick around long enough, and you can see that progression. And people that I took my YLS with now are, there's elected officials, there's chiefs of staff, there are people that are starting to really make a long-term career for themselves. And I guess it was kind of getting into that community and realizing that I was part of an organization that not only encouraged that, but created it. I think that was really the big thing that pushed me over the edge of, like, oh, this is really serious.
Did you feel special when you got here?
Yeah, oddly enough. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense because you're in a room with 80 other people, but it's almost like, oh, I found the thing. I found the path. Like, everybody else is kind of going down this maybe freeway to nowhere in a way. But
wandering a bit, not sure.
Yeah. People spend a whole lot of time and effort wandering and going halfway down a trail and figuring out it's not the right way, and then turning and going another way. And they spend a lot of time and energy and money doing that. And some people do that their whole lives. But whenever you find kind of a path to walk, the way, you find a path to walk and you just stay on it. And, it was pretty obvious to me at LI that, okay, here's a path that will take me to where I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And also direct me in the way I want to go. Because at the time I didn't really know, do I want to work in politics my whole life, or what do I want to do? It stuck me on that path, and I went down at full speed.
Well, I think that's what's so cool about LI is you're not the first person to kind of share
Mm-hmm.
that kind of story where they come, they feel like they meet a community,
Mm-hmm.
where those field rep candidates and representatives basically develop friendships that
Mm-hmm.
they continue for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
For somebody who doesn't know what a field rep is and what it's like, could you describe it?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's the best. I mean, I've had some really cool jobs. I could say being a field rep is definitely one of the coolest jobs I've had, because it's and I'll just describe the field rep program. So basically, as a field representative for LI, you're kind of the tip of the spear for the Leadership Institute's campus programs. So a lot of people don't know this, but Leadership Institute not only does training, but it also has a pretty substantial presence on college campuses.
Mm-hmm.
Not to start Leadership Institute clubs, but to take the knowledge of LI trainings and directly insert that into on-campus activism throughout the country. So if you have a campus conservatives group, you and 4 of your friends decide, I want to start just a campus conservatives group because I'm a conservative and I want to promote it at my school. Leadership Institute will send you not only just resources in the form of grants and materials, but they will send a field representative to your campus. They live in the state. Their full-time job is to work on campus, and they'll help you recruit. They'll help you put together public programs. They'll help you put together literature. They'll even help you fundraise. And it's almost like they're a free consultant for those groups. And as a field rep, it was really great for me because I got to apply the things that I had learned from the Youth Leadership School and from Leadership Institute. I get restless if I'm not doing something.
Mm-hmm.
So being a field rep, you're in a lot of ways, you're the master of your own destiny. So you get to decide, okay, Tuesday I'm going to go to this campus and help these 3 groups that I've set up there. Wednesday I'm going to do a public program at this school. And you get to kind of be almost like a campaign manager for a state. Mm-hmm. And work with all these different groups. And so I really enjoyed it because I got to decide how I was going to spend my time. I got to be in charge of whether I was going to succeed or fail. And I mean, the pay was also very good. And I got to, for the first time, with the support and knowledge of this storied institution of Leadership Institute, mm-hmm. with all that backing, I got to kind of implement that on a granular level on a college campus. Mm-hmm. And the students I met there, the people I worked with there, I'm still good friends with. If I ever need anything, I was in Michigan. Mm-hmm. If I ever need anything in Michigan, I have 20 people I can call because I worked with all of them when they were in college.
And you have YLS grads, so you've got a network across the nation.
That's a whole other thing. Yeah, the YLS grads,
yeah.
I've trained over 5,000 at this point. And so, yeah, I've got a lot of those. But
so from field rep to Youth for Trump.
Yeah.
How'd you land a position at the campaign?
Luck. No, I would say, so as far as the career progression goes, mm-hmm. just nuts and bolts. I was a field rep. You have about a 3-month contract with Leadership Institute to be a field rep. Mm-hmm. Once that contract is up, you can either try to renew for one more contract. And the beauty of LI is Morton also views the field rep program as an opportunity to teach and train. Mm-hmm. So we don't want field reps to work for LI until they're 40. Mm-hmm. We want you to take this experience and then go use that to benefit the broader movement. So you can do 2 full contracts. I was renewing for my 2nd contract as a field rep whenever I got the call that a regional field coordinator job had opened up at Leadership Institute for the West Coast. And a regional field coordinator job is where you're basically in charge of a team of field reps. You also are in charge of not just finding groups and starting them and growing them. You're in charge of basically cultivating that group in the long term. Mm-hmm. So kind of, I guess, the boss of a region. And I saw that as an opportunity, thought, man, this is going to be great because I get to travel. Mm-hmm. I get to interact with not just groups in one state, but groups in several states, hundreds of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I can connect them with this amazing thing that I found that, many of them maybe didn't know about before or haven't experienced. So took that job, did it for a couple of years. I believe they would say I excelled at it because they kept me around. And eventually, whenever there was an opening to direct the youth leadership school, I jumped at it, partly because of my education background, but also because I was really passionate about the idea of mass-based youth organizing, what we teach.
And why were you so passionate about that?
Because it works. So I'm passionate about it still, very much so, because I feel as though the conservative movement has not abandoned the idea of youth organizing, but has not learned from our past, right? So the Reagan campaign, the 1980s, really spawned multiple youth organizations, and a lot of what we see as the modern youth conservative movement today, and modern conservative movement in general, was spawned kind of out of the Reagan Revolution. For whatever reason, we stopped somewhere along the line really on campaigns for conservatives, really going in and targeting young people as a demographic that conservatives need to talk to. And after going through the youth leadership school, I said, well, this is the program. This is all we need to do right here, and we can win young people. Why aren't we doing this? And so I've been on a crusade ever since of trying to convince conservatives and campaigns to do the mass-based youth organizing that I taught. And so that's kind of my crusade, if you will.
Crusade into youth organizing. What have been some of the highlights of that crusade?
The Trump campaign was definitely the highlight. I would say overall, the best thing that I've seen is the many organizations that have started to, if not already, before I started working at Leadership Institute, spawned out of LI, grow, or the groups that have benefited from Leadership Institute's help grow and really start to expand their presence throughout the country. I think that's a pretty big highlight. And really the graduates that I've taught, going and using their training to do good things, that's been, over the rainbow about a lot of their achievements, because, you can see the movement kind of growing. But I would say the cherry on top of everything was the Trump campaign, and understanding that a presidential campaign was serious about organizing youth more than just in name only. Presidential campaigns in the past for Republicans and conservatives have
kind of ignored the youth.
Yeah, if anything, they would throw together an advisory council. One campaign, I'm not going to say who, there was no one on their advisory council that was under the age of 40. Really? So it didn't work out. Turns out, and so we've been getting clobbered in the 18 and 24-year-old demographic, and we've kind of been not really giving the serious attention to our future as a movement that we need to.
Do you think the Trump campaign turned that around? Do you think it's been enough to turn a generation?
I hope. There is more that can be done, and I think the big thing in what I do now is at a House level, a Senate level, even a local level, they have to follow the president's lead and say, I'm serious about organizing the next generation, not just for years to come, not just for the next 20, 30, 40 years, but also for right now. Because young people are a huge source of volunteers for campaigns. They can actually vote, and yes, you should register some young people to vote. They can vote, they can volunteer, they give a youthful image to a campaign, they have tons of energy, and they're a huge asset to a campaign right now.
So what would you say to people who view the youth as like a liability as opposed to an asset?
Yeah, I would say they are believing a widely held myth that all young people are liberal. That's one very widely held myth. All young people are liberal, and there's no use in actually reaching out to them because they're just going to be a bunch of crazy socialists. It's not true. Most young people are apathetic. They don't really vote or get involved in politics.
That's kind of how you started, yeah?
Exactly. And I see it all over the country. Walk on any college campus right now and ask somebody who the vice president is. They probably don't know. That doesn't mean they're liberal. They're just apathetic.
Yeah.
So get them involved in your campaign, and they won't be anymore. I would also say, folks who think young people are liabilities, come to the Leadership Institute. Look at the graduates of the Youth Leadership School. That's partly the certification process that someone goes through to become a graduate of the Youth Leadership School is pretty rigorous. I mean, I've ran that program for several years, and I can tell you from the time someone walks in the door to the time they leave, it's over 29 hours of training in 2 days. We call it the boot camp of politics. I can tell you, is this person a liability? Do they have good judgment? Are they hardworking? Is this someone who could be an asset to a campaign somewhere? And so come and find these certified people. Don't take a chance. Let LI do the vetting for you.
Great. So obviously, Morton Blackwell is the leader and the founder of the Leadership Institute. And kind of tracing through your career journey, how would you describe the impact he's had on your life?
Oh, gosh. It's like second only to my parents, maybe. I don't know. It's serious. Because at Leadership Institute, essentially, if I had not gotten involved with Morton Blackwell and Leadership Institute, I wouldn't know my wife. I met my wife at Leadership Institute. How
did you guys meet at LI?
I was actually coming back to LI. I'll tell this story. She'll probably hate me, but I was coming back to LI from the Trump campaign, and I remember I was coming up the elevator with Cabot Phillips, our editor-in-chief at Campus Reform. Cabot and I are friends, and so we were kind of chatting, and whenever you come out of the elevator, coming into LI, Campus Reform the suite is directly in front.
Right.
And my wife at the time was working there as a correspondence director. And the doors open, big glass doors are there, and I look and I see my future wife sitting there, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is a beautiful woman. I have to go talk to her, figure out a way to talk. And walk through the doors with Cabot, and completely blow. I find out months later, completely blow the introduction to my wife, because I'm like nervous, and I only have a few seconds to figure out what I'm going to say to this beautiful woman.
So did she tell you blew it?
Oh yeah, she will. If you want to interview her, she'll tell you all about how I blew it. But eventually convinced her to go on some dates with me, and eventually convinced her to be my girlfriend, and then I guess I tricked her into marrying me. So it's all working out. But to kind of go back to LI a little bit, I have my career from LI. I found my wife, and hope my family will kind of stem from LI. None of that would have happened had there not been someone like Morton Blackwell who was willing to take a chance on a young person, an totally unproven young person that he saw potential in.
With a 12-page monster
With
resume.
a 12-page horrible resume. I've cleaned it up since then with help of conservative jobs. But he took a chance on me and was willing to put his legendary reputation on the line for a young person that was, as of yet, kind of unproven. And that's really part of the beauty of Morton Blackwell, and part of the beauty of Leadership Institute is that Morton is willing to take a chance on generation after generation of young activists and give them an opportunity that they wouldn't otherwise get unless they had the right last name, certain number in their bank account, some political patronage owed to them. For instance, I just bought a house, and I look at my house as an investment. I'm not spending money for my house payment. I'm investing money towards my house. It's the same thing with Leadership Institute. You're not burning money. You're not sending money to be spent. You're investing it in the house we're trying to build for the conservative movement. If you don't have a good foundation, you don't build your house out of good materials, and you don't start from a really appropriate point, you're not going to have a good house to live in. So whenever a donor invests in Leadership Institute, they're directly giving money and resources to a young person that otherwise would not be involved in the conservative movement, or would not be as effective as if they were, otherwise.
And LI is kind of providing that foundation. They give you the philosophy, the values, the principles. Yeah. And then as far as the materials, they equip you with the tools and the political technology you need succeed. So that's a cool way to phrase the investment as opposed to spending money, investing in the conservative house.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to be a brain surgeon, you got to pay some money to go to medical school, but you're investing in your future career. I'm not, if a brain surgeon walks in to operate on me and says, well, I watched a couple YouTube videos, let's go. I'm not going to have a lot of confidence in that. Same way in campaigns, someone walks in off the street and says, well, I watched some House of Cards, so I think I've got this. Doesn't work. So, you know, we need to view it that way, as if we're really building
long-term investment with the tools, the materials to last for generations to come.
Absolutely. And then, you know, to LI staff, I would say, and I think I've even said this before, you're working for an organization, you're standing on the shoulders of giants in a lot of ways. You're working for an organization that it's not the flashiest organization out there. It is not something that's normally on the front page, if we can help it, on the front page of the New York Times. But it's the behind the scenes backbone of the conservative movement. I talk to campaign managers and consultants and folks that are out in the trenches right now getting people elected, and candidates themselves. And I'll say who I used to work for, who, you know, that I'm currently work for Morton, or I used to work for Leadership Institute. And I'd say 8 times out of 10, they come back with, oh, I took this class at LI. I used to work for Morton, or I did this, or
the Dan Crenshaws of the world took not 1 but 7 schools before running for office.
Exactly. And I can always tell the people I'm working with if they're going to be good or not by the number of LI trainings that they took. But yeah, I mean, that everybody working here is kind of a piece of an organization that is supporting the rest of the conservative movement in many ways. And the work they do matters a lot. I think Brian Burness in particular, he's the VP of campus programs here, has truly innovated a lot in what LI does for the campus programs, and has brought that into a completely new generation, but into a completely new sphere of what they're able to do. Campus reform is a project of that, and has had a massive impact. I was involved a little bit with the president's signing of his free speech executive order. That's something that we had fought for here at Leadership Institute for years and years and years, on campus, off campus, with legal partners. And campus reform really made that a mainstream issue. And in many, many ways, the students that were involved with campus reform and exposing what was happening on college campuses, they got that to the president's desk. He signed it. They stood behind him. All the people standing behind the president at that executive order signing were victims of this oppression that worked with Leadership Institute to publish their stories. And they were standing behind the president where he signed it. So that was a direct line from campus reforms reporting, the campus leadership programs activism, to a real world policy change that happened with the most powerful man in the world. So I think it can't really be understated the work that the campus team does. Kristen Dobson does a wonderful job running all of the different regional field coordinators and really making stuff happen every day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you are missed, but we're excited to continue working with you as a faculty member for YLS schools and obviously with Morton's conservative PAC. So.
Thanks so much for watching. To see our latest video, click here. And to make sure you don't miss any future videos, be sure to subscribe. And since you're still here, give this video a thumbs up.